My name is Ebenezer Safadu. I'm a business strategy consultant and a data specialist. If you've been following my channel, I've been interviewing the gurus of Power BI, especially the MVPs of Microsoft Power BI. These are very elite group of people who know how the ins and the outs of Power BI, and they use it regularly, bringing out new ways that we can improve our world through data. Today, I have a special guest in the person of Alice Drummond. I'm so excited about this interview because Alice is passionate about a part of Power BI I'm also very passionate about, which is the visualization aspect of Power BI and using Power BI for community solutions. And today we'll be talking a lot on environmental management using Power BI. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Wow. How's Australia?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. At the moment, I'm based in the Mornington Peninsula, so about an hour and a half from Melbourne, in
Okay.
Victoria, and it's a beautiful part of the world. It's along the coast, so we've got the bay on one side, the beach on the other. Very nice.
Wow. I remember I saw a setup of your was it a conference, the women conference in data or something of that sort. You gave us a nice view of your workspace.
Yeah, so that was a couple of months ago. That was for our Women in Biz Apps conference. I was based in Toowoomba then. So that's up in the high country, kind of all of the mountains near the snow in Victoria. So
Oh,
for the last 6 months, me and my husband Christian, we've been traveling around Victoria, staying 1 month in a new location. Just because everyone is still virtual here in Australia, we're currently in lockdown. I think this is our fifth lockdown. So while we can work remotely, we've been taking advantage of it. It's really nice.
wow. That's nice. I'm sure living in Australia may have impacted on your choice as an environmental engineer.
Yeah, definitely. I guess Australia, we're quite a dry continent. So we get the extreme weathers, we get bushfires, a lot of droughts, we also get floods. And environmental management is really quite important because we have quite a scarce amount of different resources. So when I was growing up, we were always quite environmentally conscious. And yeah, no, it really did influenced my decision to study. I studied environmental engineering, so specializing in water resource management.
All right. So that leads me into the question of you introducing yourself to my audience. Let us know who Alice Drummond is and what she does.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Alice Drummond. I'm a Microsoft MVP for the data platform. So I specialize in Power BI. But I haven't always worked in Power BI, only for the last couple of years, actually. So I was just chatting with Ebenezer just before and telling him I've actually got a background in environmental engineering. So I previously worked for about 8 years as a water resource specialist. So where I did surface water and groundwater management and developing the future 50-year plans for water management across regions like Victoria, or I worked in New Zealand as well. And then I kind of fell into data and Power BI a couple of years ago, actually. I was really lucky. One of my colleagues at work, he was working in the digital team, and he introduced me to Power BI. At first, I was a bit resistant because I love Excel. I was a big macros creator. I loved it. I did a bit of other programming as well. And I was like, oh, why do we even need Power BI? That just looks like a bit of a pain. I have to learn something new. But then when I kind of started getting into it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I can literally do all of my data processing in a couple of clicks of a button. And I was blown away. I loved it so much. I was really trying hard to push it internally within my company, but I kept getting the same response. Everyone said, wow, this is great, Alice. I'm just a bit too busy to learn a new software. They were like me. And I totally understood, but I thought that for the environmental data, our data is so kind of big. We have a lot of data to process. It's really messy as well, but it's also can be quite extremely complex to communicate to the non-technical audiences and the general public, all these intricacies of why and how and what are we managing in the environment. that I thought Power BI is a perfect tool for this type of information. So me and my husband, Christian, he also has a background in environmental engineering, more on the contaminated sites and remediation space. We decided to take a bit of a chance, a bit of a leap of faith, and start our own company, DiscoverEI, where we specialize in Power BI for the environmental industry and also incorporating graphic design, really focused on that communication aspect. So we started a couple of years ago now. I think we're sitting at about 2.5 years. So everything's going. We've had a really nice run. I think the timing has been quite nice. Everyone's realizing the importance of making data-driven decisions, especially in this virtual world that we now find ourselves in. And I guess with all of the impacts of climate change, environmental management's really at the forefront of different decision makers' agendas, and it's really a big focus of the community, especially here in Australia.
Interesting. That's a pretty nice background, and by mix of faith and happenstance and some level of grace, you were able to get this company running. And today it's a big thing. I mean, I'm yet to see anyone design dashboards like Alice and the Discover AI team does. It's so amazing, especially with maps. They are
Thank you.
specialists in the world on maps, the use of maps. I was just discussing with Alice before this interview on how I'm amazed at how they use maps, especially in their design. So, Alice, environmental management in general, can you give us some broad aspects of environmental management to help users, especially those in the space, to know what is possible in the space to actually analyze with data?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I guess we kind of work with two different types of project typically. So the first type tends to be how Power BI is usually applied. It's applied to automate the data processing, bring data into a tool, do a bit of cleaning, and present it in a way that facilitates decision making. So for example, we work a lot with regional water corporations to help them manage their future water supplies. And one of these water corps we've been working with for a couple of years now. We've done a lot of studies in automating all of the ingestion of data. So they have, if you imagine water flowing through a lot of pipes to go to people's houses, they have a lot of meters which are monitoring the flow of this water through all of these pipes. And they need to use that data to make a lot of decisions. But that data is inherently messy. So they have all of these, what's known as a meter reset, where they're measuring water or flow through pipes, cumulative flow, and then ad hoc, the meter just resets. It resets to zero. So we have to do a bit of data cleaning there to make the data usable. And then when we bring it into Power BI, we've got like, say, 1,000 different meters mapped all across their system. And it's thinking about how we're going to use that data to make decisions. So one of the studies is monitoring flow through these pipes to detect potential leaks in the system. So we've
Wow.
configured like a Power BI report which isolates a period of time during the night. So this is between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. when most people are asleep and they're not using
Asleep?
their water.
Yeah.
So then we can identify where they've got bigger than usual flows in these pipe sections to identify where potential water loss could occur. And it really speeds it up, the process, because previously they were just analyzing this data in Excel probably once every 3 or 4 months because there is so much data. And then they would, that lag time of them identifying a leak means maybe this pipe has been potentially leaking for a few months and we're losing quite a lot of water and it's degrading their assets and infrastructure. So that's
Wow.
kind of one way. There's a lot of different studies like that using this data once it's cleaned up in Power BI and other tools, like we're using the Azure Machine Learning environment and Azure Data Factory to do lots of that data processing, bringing it in to the reports, presenting it in a way that can facilitate decision making. But also because this software is being used internally by these environmental management organizations, a big component of our project is all around training and
Training
empowering
and
the
capacity,
engineer.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because otherwise, if we develop these solutions, they could fall over as soon as we leave the project. And this is the engineer's job at the end of the day. Their job is to analyze this data to make the decisions. So we do a lot of training and on-the-job training and then structured training at the end of these courses, at the end of these projects, to really try to upskill and empower the engineers to use their data to modify and update their own Power BI reports, and building kind of the smarts into it as well, which an engineer could use. So
I
I think I
get
mentioned that I love Excel, and I used to be a big Excel user. Pretty much any engineer you talk to, they love Excel. It's their tool of choice. It's their database. That's what they think a database is. So for projects like this, we're actually using tools like Excel, where some manual data cleaning is required to configure the Excel report up to the
a
SQL
proper
database, which
database, yeah,
sits
yeah.
behind it, and then they can clean the data up. It writes SQL scripts for them, which goes back to the single source of truth. It cleans it up, but they can do it in Excel because that's the tool they kind of know, and they know, they feel confident in it and things like that. So that's kind of one half of the piece. That's the piece we do quite a lot for the automation, data cleaning, and people are using this data on a very regular basis. The other
And the
half,
second
which
how?
is,
Okay.
yeah, I was going to say the other half, which is really important in environmental management, is the visual communication of the data to facilitate decision making. So we've got in the environmental industry, we work with a whole wide range of different people to make decisions. So another recent project we're working on is working in with a group of people from different universities, with the CSIRO, different research organizations to try to bring together 6 years of research into the environmental impacts of feral pig populations up north in Cape York. And this is a whole lot of data which we have to bring together to really try to paint a picture of what has been happening in the environmental management space, but make it really a visual so it can be used as a communication tool to educate the general public and different non-technical audiences about what has been happening in this space. So we work a lot with, that's where the front end design is really, really important to try and visualize and communicate what can be really complex data in a simple way to understand using lots of maps and images and infographics, things like that.
Wow. So, I mean, right from what you said, it means that currently one project you've worked on was to look at the flow rate of a water company and how it serves, it goes through its pipes, to use that to identify whether there was an unusual flow in certain areas. And that could mean that such an abnormality could mean that there could be a burst or a waste of water resources in the organization. So they reduce the amount of wastage in their system. And with Power BI means that now they could get near to real-time data, which they can actually act on time. Hitherto, they were using Excel, which means that you would have to now aggregate the data on various sheets and then send to maybe the data guys to then
Yeah.
know what to do. Wow, that's an interesting data analysis that's trying to use Power BI to effectively manage water resources. Wow, that's pretty much interesting. What other projects have you worked on that you could share with, apart from the other one that you're talking about, the university researches of 6 years? What other projects
Yes.
that are so interesting to you that you've worked on?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I've got, I think I was saying to you earlier that a lot of the examples that we create, they are built for public communication
Concept.
and sharing. So we've been lucky enough to work with a couple of organizations who have wanted to make these Power BI reports public communication tools. So I might just share screens now, if that's okay, and chat through two other examples that we've created quite
That
recently.
would be fantastic. So
Awesome.
just share the screen and walk us through your solutions. Wow.
Cool. So we've got this project here was working with the Victorian Government for Environment, Land, Water and Planning, where we were using Power BI to create a series of different kind of dashboard style reports to communicate their biennial statement, which is a statement they release every 2 years on the future supply and demand pressures facing Victoria in regards to water. So you can see here that we've got a lot of different challenges that Victoria faces in terms of water. We've got balancing different water values. We've got the impact of bushfires, also climate change. A new one is COVID-19. That's facing a lot of people around the world, and also population growth. So here we're just combining an infographic to communicate these key challenges and provide a bit of a narrative here as well to really introduce the problem.
Okay.
And then across Victoria, we've got what's known as the Victorian water grid. So you could think of it a bit like an electricity grid. This is our
Okay.
network of rivers, pipes, reservoirs. We've got a desal plant to try and manage the future water supply and demand. So because this is fairly complex, you can see here we've worked with our designer, Renat, to make this all interactive. We can click on different elements like the Murray River and read about a bit of a snapshot about its what it is and different environmental aspects as well. So we've got a lot of information here. We can use the slices to interact. So this visual here, this is a custom visual. This is the synoptic panel. So I think,
Okay.
Ebenezer, we were chatting about this earlier, and this is an amazing visual to
Uh-huh.
represent interactive infographics. So we've got it on a couple of pages here. You can see different projects which the team have been working on across Victoria, and also where this water is moving throughout the state. You
Wow.
mentioned maps before, so we use a lot of maps in our Power BI reports because we are visualizing environmental data. So here you can see this is a very, very simple map of the different water corporations across Victoria. And we can click on the different water corporations like Southeast Water here, and we can have a look at different factors which are contributing to whether they're in kind of a high risk area for water management, or how are they managing it? When do we need to intervene to make sure that we've got enough water for the next 50 years? So there's a lot of different kind of icons we try to use because this is all community engagement and public facing. So lots of icons with tooltips and things like that, just to try and communicate different aspects a little bit clearer as well. So we've got a whole series of reports here. This one is about managing rural water challenges. So it's another very simple map. One of my favorite ones here is the environmental management. So here we've got different traditional owner areas with lots of different information, but I think the environmental management one is actually really cool because this is where we're using another type of mapping visual icon map to provide a snapshot of what are the key assets that we're trying to protect in these environments. So we can click on different elements from the map and it brings up the key features here. So this is another custom visual using the card browser this time, where you can click through and just learn more about what are these environmental assets that we're trying to protect here.
So for each icon that you select, apart from a tooltip to show you what is happening, it also affects the card browser that you have with the image of what you're protecting in the environment in that particular water resource. area?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you can hover and have a report page tooltip, and you can see at a glance that we're protecting vegetation and birds. And if you wanted to learn more, then you can click on these cards and read a little bit more about what exactly are we trying to protect with the vegetation at the broken wetlands.
Wow, that's interesting. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting
so
to know how you would actually manage this data. So, what's the source of the data?
so the source of the data is this is a really kind of simplified data set because this data traditionally gets presented in PDF reports. So what we did to develop this data set was a lot of stakeholder engagement workshops. So we're working closely with the core team at the government department, but we had about 3 different working groups with all of those 19 water corporations and the other environmental management organizations to actually collect this data. So what's sitting behind this is a very simple, nicely uh, curated Excel spreadsheet.
Wow,
So it's nothing fancy because the key objective of this Power BI report study
is to
was
communicate.
it's to communicate, but also to develop a nice, easy system that the team of environmental officers at the government department they can maintain and update in house. So we're just hosting that Excel spreadsheet on their SharePoint site. And with minimal training in Power BI, they know how to update that data when new information comes in. And they know the process for making minor edits to the Power BI reports, republishing it, and we're just using a Power BI publish to web link here. So we had to keep it really simple because our end kind of target audience is the general public here. It's not complex data, but also the fact that we wanted to have the environmental officers who aren't business intelligence specialists. The first time most of them saw Power BI was on this project, so that they can maintain it internally and make these minor tweaks when a new asset comes online or things like that.
Wow, that's pretty much interesting. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you picked several data that had already been published to the public, um, and converted into such user-friendly interface, as well as to educate the public and help the various people or stakeholders in the chain to know what to do, where to go for. And so practically you've been able to visually communicate the water challenges in Victoria area by combining various data sets to help. So in this case, environmental engineers could have their roles and they're rightly stated, depending on which area you may be, you'll be interested in particular um, areas. And that's pretty
Yeah.
much amazing. And all this was done with Power BI.
Yeah, exactly. And a bit of Adobe Illustrator. So we do the graphics as well. So things like this. We made this infographic here and the Vic Water grid graphics and things like that. But yeah, it's all of these mini pages here. We've just embedded it on the website. They can go full screen as well. This is all Power BI, and it's not Power BI embedded. It's Power BI published to web.
Published web. Okay. I was wondering how you were able to, for instance, with the yes, the how does the grid work? Because I told you my background is electrical engineering, so I mean I look at our national grid and looking at how were you able to design that with a synapse to ensure that you had, because as you click on particular lines, you're able to get information on that.
Yeah, definitely. So we're using a custom visual here called Synoptic Panel. So it's
Okay.
a fantastic custom visual created by the OK Viz team. And you can use a website. So what it is, it just accepts an SVG kind of
File.
image, which is
Yeah.
a like scalable vector graphic. The base map here, it's stored as PNG, so they convert it to base 64. You can use an online tool called Synoptic Designer. So this is great if you're getting started with it and you just have a really easy image. You can just drag it in here and start clicking around and creating those interactive shapes. For us, we had a very detailed image here, which we've created in Adobe Illustrator. So if you know a little bit about design and how to edit SVG files, we just developed a workflow to automate this process. So we didn't use Synoptic Designer because it's a bit clunky if you want your design to be perfect. Um, we were editing the SVG files and creating that directly from Adobe Illustrator. So
Okay.
once you have your SVG file, it's a bit like a kind of like a map file. All of these shapes here, they have an ID, and you just have to match
Okay.
that ID up with your data set.
All
So
right.
that's how you bind it. That's how you make it interactive.
I see. That's very innovative. Let me check. Can we see the water movement? I'm sure you might have something amazing in there. The water
Yeah.
movement.
So we're on the water movements tab
Yeah.
here. So it's not too
Yeah. So
amazing.
that's
It's just
what.
showing the
Yeah. You would.
direction of the
Yeah.
flows of the arrows.
All
So
right.
it's quite a simple representation here. It's just saying where water is moved around the grid, and it's just showing the direction it moves here. So this is
That.
quite a simple page.
And you have a reset button for easy navigation.
Yeah, exactly. So if people get a bit lost, if you select one thing, you can just reset it as well. So this was a really fun example of how we can use Power BI for public communication. And this was really interesting because we did a lot of stakeholder engagement here. This was about maybe the third or fourth iteration. We were co-designing these pages with the environmental officers who were getting feedback from all different levels. So it was really nice. Everyone was kind of part of this journey. And that's one
Wow.
of the beautiful things about Power BI. It's so quick to redesign because it's drag and drop. We're not doing custom coding. We don't have to code up every single visual element. You have that luxury. You can design things really quickly and prototype together, which
Wow.
is really great.
Very great. All right. So can you take us through another?
Yeah, definitely. So this is another example where we worked on with the International Water Centre and the Australian Water Partnership. This was in August last year to develop a COVID-19 water security risk index. So this is a study which was really quite topical and important, all about trying to communicate the risks of COVID-19 because of the water supply and sanitation issues across the Indo-Pacific region. So we're working with a team of scientists at Griffith Uni and the International Water Centre who've done a lot of research about how the water supply and the water security impacts the country's ability to combat and deal with COVID-19.
COVID-19. Okay.
So I think we've all heard a lot about how hand hygiene and sanitation is essential for trying to reduce
The
the impact
COVID-19
of and the
management. Yeah.
spreading. Yeah, and I guess being based in Australia, we sometimes take for granted people having access to clean and safe drinking water and hygiene and sanitation. But across kind of the Indo-Pacific, there's a few areas which are of kind of higher risk of not having access to the right infrastructure and things like that. So it's all about having a look at holistically where are these risks based and what can we as a water community do to try and increase and target investment in certain aspects to try and reduce the risk and increase a country's ability to have the resources available to combat COVID.
19.
So
Wow.
we've got some information about the different factors which are assessed. Not all factors are water related, so indicating which factors
How
are
how is
water
your
related.
yes
Yeah.
and I realize you have this bubble of water by the yes. How was that
Yeah.
developed?
Yeah. So this is using conditional formatting in Power BI. This is just, I think it's a table visual. And within tables, you can use conditional formatting with icons. So
Okay.
here that we've just added a custom icon, and that
Wow.
was just like a 1 or 0 flag. So you can add your own icons into the Power BI theme file as an icon set. So we've just used that here.
All right. Wow, that's impressive. So you have the risk map. All right.
Yeah. So we've got
I'm
risk map for the Asia region and a different one for the Pacific region. So in the Asia region, you can see we've got like South and West Asia, or Southeast and Eastern Asia. So we can filter like that. We could search for a specific country or select from the slicer here. And it brings up, this is the overall water security risk. We can toggle through the different factors here, and it changes the risk color based on their,
okay. So it's color coded down there, extremely
yeah,
high to
exactly.
low.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
What
definitely. And
what custom visual is that for the pyramid?
yeah, so this is a radar chart. So
Oh,
you can see just a closer, you can see how we're using the color gradient as a background. So for immunize, at the time of the study, when we did the study, it was extremely high risk. I think we hadn't got a COVID vaccine. That risk would be lower right now. But you can see it just highlights where these risks are. So if we have
would
a look at
be
all of the countries, see Afghanistan has quite high risks associated with all of the different
all the
kind of
five,
factors.
all the six factors.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And again, we're using lots of kind of color to communicate. Here we've got dynamic icons again to show a bit more information about what these factors kind of mean. So we're using the color coding here to try and show those key water-related factors like water utility income generation, and showing the risk associated with that for the specific country we've selected.
Wow. I realized that the icons too were color coded depending on what was selected.
Yeah.
How was that done? Or it's just a traditional. How were you able to color code the icons?
Yeah, so again, with Power BI, it's all about having little tricks. So this behind this is a table matrix again,
All right.
and we're using conditional formatting in the background. So this is a background color behind those cells. And we've just got an image which is being brought in here. So we've got the image dynamically changing if there's more than one country selected. It's the background color is white with the
White.
image being
Okay.
blue. And then if you select it, if you select one country, the image changes to be white, and the background color is conditionally formatted based on what the
I,
risk is. Yeah.
I get it. That's very much innovative. I mean, these tricks sometimes amaze me how you come about them.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of the end user asks something because we work with a lot of people who don't even know Power BI exists, and they have these ideas, and we're like, okay, how can we make Power BI do what they want it to do? What are the options available to us? And there's a lot of amazing people out there in the Power BI community who love the design. So we get a lot of inspiration from people like Mike Carlo at PowerBI.tips, Mike and Seth there, Reed Havens at Havens Consulting. He does a lot in the
Yeah.
design
Yeah.
space.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people out there who quite like the design. If you haven't come across her, Carrie Kolovsko, she is incredible at design. She has some really interesting and very technical ways of
Oh.
Power BI to improve Power BI design. So she does a lot in the SVG space, a lot with kind of the custom coding of different visuals. So like the latest one being Danab. Yeah, she has very technical design. Whereas we look for workarounds. We're like, okay, how can we do this? Let's just work around because we have to hand it over to the business user. We have to try to make
Wow.
it as easy as possible.
Risk factors. I'm sure the two maps are just one for specific and one for Asia.
So this map was because we have these Pacific area has a lot of tiny, tiny islands. If we were to try and use this is a field map here. If we're trying to use
Okay.
this visual for the Pacific map, these islands are so small you can barely even see it. You have to zoom right in. They would be lost. So that's why we decided to split the map out and use this is just the standard map in Power BI with labels on it, just so we can see these tiny Pacific Island nations.
They also have tooltips on them.
Yeah, so we've also got tooltips.
Wow, that's
So we can
brilliant.
hover. Yeah, it's all the same kind of functionality. And here we're using the icons again in a big matrix. So anytime you're working with matrices, you can try to make them look a bit nicer with the conditional formatting with the icons here. Here we've got some gray background to indicate that these factors were considered but not included in the study, and things like this. So this is really for the scientists and the researchers to go back and understand how were these risks developed, and if they wanted to do their own study, have a look at what factors were assessed. So this is kind of like all the metadata behind the process.
The process. All right. And the feedback
Yeah, so the feedback that just links directly out to a Microsoft form to allow
form.
people to give feedback, and you can download the report. Here you can download either the PDF or the accessible Word report, or download the Excel database, which sits behind this as well. So you can play around with the data yourself.
All right. You did all that in Power BI. I'm sure you would use Power Automate.
Power Automate. No, this is really simple back end again. All we've got is an Excel spreadsheet, which uh, the client collected all this information and stored it in a series of matrices. That Excel file, I think they're managing it in-house. I think uh, they're not really updating this that regularly, but when they do, they can just republish it up. So I think that Excel is sitting somewhere on their network. So no Power Automate required here. I think this
Wow.
is just a hyperlink to a feedback form, a Microsoft form, very simple.
And the
So
download
all of
report.
this, yeah, that one. It's just to download again. The report is saved online
Okay, okay. All right.
via a web URL. You can just
All
download
right.
the report. So the
All right.
report here is the PDF report of the actual
So
supporting
that
document. So this is what they would tend to deliver. This is what we were trying to replicate in Power BI, uh, a PDF written report. You can see it's very technical. Here's all these risk matrices that we were looking at, very word heavy. So this is really to complement that. It's almost like an executive summary to communicate to more non-technical audiences.
and the download data also has another URL that you could easily go and
Exactly.
download.
And that
Oh,
just downloads an Excel spreadsheet.
that's pretty much straightforward. Wow. I mean, I'm amazed about how detailed. I mean, I saw this report and I was just imagining the amount of work that might have gone in the design. Like that's pretty cool, Alice. I did something quite not close to what you did for looking at our development indexes. Uh, Indices around different aspects of our economic indicators, social indicators, and some governance, some ESGs.
Yeah.
But this pretty cool. I wish I'd seen this then. I would have drawn inspiration from you.
Oh, thank you so much. It is all about drawing inspiration from other people out there in the community. I think for this Vic Water grid one, I got a lot of inspiration in the layout from the Microsoft Bake Off. So I think it was Justina did one. I can't remember what it was on. Maybe it was on some sort of public health, but she used
Yeah, yeah,
buttons just like this
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
shadows and things like that. So I was like, oh, wow, that looks cool. And it's all about trying to take what design aspects you like from other people's reports and thinking, how could I make this my own and use it in my own report. So we go a lot onto the data stories gallery to get ideas and inspiration. It's all about following those people who are kind of innovators in the design space, just to keep up to date with what's possible in Power BI, and lots of interesting and weird designs that you would have never thought of. So definitely draw inspiration from lots of people out there, I think.
Wow. That's I saw that. I mean, I can now see the similarities with what Justina did with Gardner on yeah, some was it, I've forgotten, life expectancy index.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's this a really neat design. I think they used lots of these type of buttons, and then on the left-hand side, they had some sort of a text narrative. They used
Narratives.
the nice curved borders with the shadows. We've got the shadows here. So I kind of took that design and thought, wow, I identified the aspects of the design that I liked, and tried to replicate it. They made their Power BI file, it was free to download, so you could actually go back and unpick and figure out what are the tricks, how did they do this? So
I actually used that trick to build a dashboard during our elections in my country. You
yeah,
know, they had this uh draw there was this um kind of x-axis that you could easily move around in one
yeah,
of the yes, for the moving the years, the trends from 1800 to the 2010s in the world population. They had this axis that it was easy. That was before Microsoft introduced the navigations on the axis that you could
yeah, the zoom sliders.
yeah,
Yeah,
zoom
I think
slicing. Yeah,
they did it with a what if slicer. You could
yeah.
just toggle it up and down. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right.
Yeah.
This is pretty much great work, and I'm sure people are inspired to help. I mean, this helps in advocacy as well as public education, also helping the experts know what to do. It follows the line with what Justina did with the life expectancy, for decision makers to know exactly what to see and what to actually decide on, especially with COVID being the baseline. That was, it was amazing. Alice, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's I feel very privileged to be able to work with these data sets, and it's really rewarding being able to use Power BI for environmental good, and to not only help decision makers make better decisions about our environment because they have the data, but also helping the people on the ground who are using this data day in, day out, to save them the data processing time so that they can focus their efforts on the management aspects as well. So no, it's a really nice area to work in.
Wow. So what other projects are you looking at?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're working a lot. We've got a whole heap of training on at the moment, actually. So we do unstructured or customized training at the end of projects or on the job. But we also have a series of training courses for Power BI for water professionals. We do a designers masterclass for anyone who loves the design aspects, and Power BI for groundwater.
Wow.
So very specific, and then Power BI generally for the environmental industry. So we've got very specific training courses, which are really great because we get to work with different government departments. We're training a regional water corp next week, and then at the end of next week, we've got an agricultural company who we're training up as well. So we're doing a lot of structured training. I think everyone was trying to get their training booked for the end of financial year so they don't lose their training
Yeah.
budget. But also at the moment, we're working on quite a few interesting studies, working with another regional water corporation to develop a public facing Power BI report to visualize their urban water strategy. So, very similar to the biennial statement, but quite specific for a water corporation to show They're doing lots of cool mapping there, showing where all their water districts are with their pipes, icons for their treatment plants and things like that. Lots of photos of what their systems look like, and also interactive infographics of all of their water supply and treatment systems as well. So that's a big
Wow.
one we're working on. We're working with another company to do more of a dredging project management dashboard. We're getting real-time vessel tracking locations from the Marine Service API, bringing that in using Azure Functions and like Azure SQL to create a database of that information. And then plotting it up in Power BI so you can see real-time locations of where these vessels are, as well as tracking. So using the icon map to create all of the tracking lines with the arrows to show the direction of where these boats are moving. And then combining it with all the project management information that the project managers can easily enter into Excel and SharePoint. So again, using the tools that people know how to use to really replace all of these static daily report cards with a more live project management type of dashboard, which people can use to see a snapshot of how they're progressing throughout the project. And yeah, that was really cool, actually. They've got live cameras on the vessels.
Ha.
So they're getting streams of that camera footage automatically sent to the email. They've got a Logic app, which is automatically processing that, bringing it into Power BI using the HTML content custom visual. Yeah, that one's kind of pushing our boundaries where again,
Wow.
the project manager has all these cool ideas and we're thinking, okay, how can we do this in Power BI?
I can just imagine what like that project will be like, especially with that footages from real life feeds and bringing all sort of data types into Power BI. I wish you will. I would like to see it when it's done.
Yeah, we'll see. We're trying to. I think when it's a bit more established, maybe we'll get the manager to present at our Power BI for Enviros group. So I might
Oh,
bring that up in case we do have any people who are passionate about the environment or want to see new and interesting applications for Power BI outside of your traditional sales and logistics data sets. So this is our virtual meetup group. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We run our Power BI for Enviros about once a month. And we only started last year, I think in November, and we've got now 841 members. So there's a lot of people and it's just continually growing, which is amazing. All of our sessions, we try to have between 2 to 3 presenters. So they're really kind of short, sharp, 15-minute style presentations of a mix of case studies. So what are people actually doing across the environmental industry it's not just Power BI, that's our favorite, it's Power BI and data analytics. Um,
wow.
so
I can see
it's got a
Power
lot
BI
of,
for the energy sector, which you told me about,
yeah, that's
which
our
I'll be
next,
interested.
yeah, that's our next one. So Mim, he's based up in Brisbane. He's amazing. He's presenting this dashboard that he's created um, off, I think, using Google BigQuery to track the live data feeds coming from Australia's national energy market. So I don't think this is in Power BI actually. I think this is in Google BigQuery, but he's a big Power BI user as well. So we can ask him all sorts of questions uh, about what he's done here. It's all real-time information, which is really cool. And then we've got Joel Gallagher as well. He's presenting on a
Solar
home
panels.
dashboard, yeah, that he's made to track his solar panels. So as with all Power BI users, like you get those people who are just so enthusiastic. He works at a big analytics consulting company. I think he's based in Melbourne as well, actually.
Wow.
But when he gets home from his day job, of course, he just wants to play around with Power BI. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's very much interesting. So, Alice, I mean, you've been in this space trying to use data to help. I mean, you are especially in the public space, public policy, and how you can use data to change how we look at things, help also inform the public. I'm sure it's very much interesting because you help to solve real problems. At the end of the day, enjoy running around with the data also. But I wanted to find what always is your inspiration when you're designing?
Yeah, so I guess my inspiration would be it's from a lot of different factors. So because I used to work as an environmental engineer, I know this data and I know the way that that traditionally we present it. So always as a bare minimum, I'm trying to at least reproduce what we could do in static PDF reports and PowerPoints. So as a first pass on any project, I would go and find what the previous reports looked like. What are their key visuals and their key messages they're trying to communicate? And use that as an inspiration. So typically we go just get screenshots of all of the interesting visuals because the environmental industry, we've got a ton of interesting visuals. Then it's a matter of how do we visualize them? So that's in terms of the data visualization. But then in terms of, say, the corporate layout and styles and themes, what we would do is go onto our client's website and have a look at how do they lay out their website? Do they have any nice, cool headers at the top? What are their colors? We always make sure we reach out to the marketing and comms team to get their corporate branded styles guide with all of their corporate icons, because it's really important if we're developing Power BI reports for even just for internal use, they have to have a look and feel that promotes trust and familiarity with their company. If people see the data represented with their own corporate colors and styles and brandings, then they have an association with that. That
Well,
yes, this
I mean,
this
that's
data is ours. Like they take more ownership for it as well.
wow. So what I get is that you always look at what it is now and how people are consuming the data now, what is relevant to them, and then look at what could be and take into consideration what they are already used to in terms of what they are familiar with their brand. Wow. That's pretty
Yeah,
much
definitely.
amazing. I mean, I would love to one day be in your strategy sessions or your brainstorming sessions and see how you guys go about the whole project.
Yeah, well, I guess it's really interesting. We usually have a co-design approach. So we start with a data exploration workshop with the core project team, and then we have a proof of concept. Then we have a more of a co-design, having a look at what we've created to identify areas where we want to enhance it or change it. Then we have a refinement stage. So it's a very much, our projects are very much kind of going along with each step with our clients. So we get all of their ideas. So we're lucky. We don't really have to think of too many ideas. We just have to think, okay, this is their ideas. How do we do it in Power BI? Let's go and research all the blogs. What boundaries can we push here? How can we push a standard visual like a boring old table or matrix and make it something really kind of powerful and being able to use to communicate that data in a much more visual format?
Oh my- Wow. Thank you very much, Alice. It's been amazing so far. I mean, I've learned a lot personally. We'll talk more. I think
Yeah, no.
Discover EI it's doing great for both on a personal level and on the community level, and even on the global level. So, what would be your takeout for professionals who want to get a career in Power BI or data analytics, especially in your field where it's more of a practical approach to solving real problems? So, what would be your last words to anybody who wants to venture into data analytics, um, as well as, I mean, using data to solve real problems?
Yeah, no, it's always important to think about. I think that what I would recommend is to just go out there and give new technology a go. Try not to be resistant, even if it's not in your day job. If you're an environmental engineer and you're like, oh, my job is really to do the water resource supply modeling, that's it. try to look broader and think, how can you make this process more efficient? How could you use all of the tools which are coming into play, like Power BI, whether it's Tableau, Google BigQuery, to try and improve your efficiency, and always try to upskill and look outside the box. If you are interested in Power BI, there's a ton of free content out there in the community. So once you've chosen, say you've chosen that, yes, I do want to do Power BI for the environment, but what do I do now? I'd go and try to follow on LinkedIn or Twitter, all of the awesome people out there who are just giving away all this free advice, all these amazing blogs. And then practice, spend time, invest time in your own learning and personal development. Maybe it's half an hour a day or 3 hours on the weekend. Just set aside that time because it does take time to upskill and learn. And just keep trying to push it forward, bring it up in conversations, make a couple of dashboards just for fun of all of the free public information which is out there to really communicate the vision and what's possible to other people to get them excited as well. And once you get enough people excited about this new technology, then you'll be able to start using it as part of your day job. So you'll get paid just to play around with all these cool tools for fun. So definitely worth investing in yourself,
Well,
I think.
consider you're enjoying your work every day. It's no more a chore.
Definitely, yeah.
One thing is for professionals to know that at the end of the day, in as much as we know our jobs, it's important that we communicate well to the stakeholders to help them buy in what we are doing. And that's what I think Alex and the Discover EI team has done brilliantly with environmental management, trying to use very things that we are familiar with to communicate to us what already could have been very technical to the average Joe. And that is brilliant. I think you've done fantastic. I think if you could help us with where to get help in terms of visualization, like maybe 3 or 4 websites or people to follow that we could help.
Yeah.
You mentioned 1 or 2 um, in our course of interview. If you could help us list like people we could follow for inspiration in terms of visualization
Yeah,
and data
definitely. So I
story.
think, yeah, my favorite Power BI website is powerbi.tips. So that's run by Mike Carlo and Seth Bauer. They focus a lot on really cool and innovative ways for Power BI visualization techniques. They have a ton of free tools you can use, like the theme generator, layouts to download, and lots of great blogs. Also, Reed Havens from Havens Consulting. He's got an amazing YouTube channel. So he loves Power BI visualization. He's got lots of short videos, all focused on things like conditional formatting, report page tooltips, lots of cool ways of visualizing it. There's a whole lot of people out there. I guess Kratos BI, so Chris Wagner.
Yeah, Kratos.
He's a really awesome guy. He's so full of energy. He is incredibly passionate about Power BI. He
Yeah,
also loves data visualization. So he's just done a whole YouTube series on Power BI visualization. I think about
I
20
saw that.
different videos. Yeah, we got to be a guest speaker on the
Yeah, you
Max one,
contribute. I
me and
saw.
Christian. Yeah, so that was kind of fun.
All right.
So he's really passionate about it. But I think if you're looking for very technical data visualization, so if you're in the world of kind of custom visuals or you love doing coding and you want to get into the nitty gritty of how to make bespoke visuals, then Daniel Marsh Patrick, he's based out of New Zealand. He's an MVP. So he works with us at DiscoverEI. We're very lucky.
Wow.
He blogs about custom visuals all the time. He's just got an awesome new custom visual called Deneb, which allows you to kind of write your own visuals. And he's done a whole series on Charticulator with the Power BI.tips team as well. And then there's Kerry Kolosko. She's based in Australia. She loves visualization, so the psychology of it. So she's got a blog as well, but also the technical side of it. So she's got a whole suite. She's using Daniel's Dana visual, pushing it to the limits and providing all these examples for free. She did all these awesome animations using his. So Daniel wrote the HTML content custom visual as well. So she's used that custom visual and made all of these animations. She did this really cool kind of dice game using CSS and custom animations in that. So she did that was published on PowerBI.tips as well. So I think PowerBI.tips, if you're following one, just follow them because they know what's going on in this world. They go interview everyone, anything cool that's happening, they just kind of put it on there. We've got some blog posts up there on Mapbox. So I've got 4 posts on there, just how to do cool maps in Mapbox. But yeah, they'd be my go-to. The list is endless. There's so many people.
I
David
mean, that's.
Eldersveld does cool stuff. I don't know. There's a ton
I'll
of
just
people.
probably get a list. Like you could just email me a list, so as I'll add it to
Yeah,
um the YouTube channel, so that it
awesome.
will be part of the description, so as people can just click on
Cool.
them.
And we've got on so we also do a blog, very ad hoc. We've got lots of kind of blog posts up there, but we've got one on our go-to Power BI resources, and there I've got a list of all the visualization people, as well as all of our other kind of favorite people for things like data governance, Power Query, and DAX. So I've got a list of all of our probably top 20 people in the Power BI community to follow. So
Oh,
I'll send you that one, and that's got the visualization people as well.
all right. So once I get it, I'll add it to the description, and viewers, you'll be able to get your way around it. Thank you very much, Alice. It's been a wonderful chat with you, viewers. So this brings us to the close. My chat has been with Alice Drummond, an environmental engineer doing amazing stuff with Power BI, solving real life problems. Can see a great environment behind you. I'd love to visit Australia one of these days. But viewers, so we'll catch Alice maybe some other time, probably get her husband on net. But I mean, subscribe to my channel and also make sure that you search for Discover AI. Have a great I don't know whether it's evening or morning, wherever you may be. Have a great time.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for having me. See you later. Bye.
Bye.